All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, anybody that is a football fanatic, we are now live here at JP Football Fanatics here on YouTube on the live stream. All of your favorite football content and what have you is all going on here, right now. So thank you everybody for tuning in. It really means a lot. I know I say it every single week that I go on, like every Tuesday night and Wednesday night, but I really do appreciate that all of you guys are doing for me. I really appreciate that you guys go on each and every week too, even if it's just one person, or if it's just two people, or maybe even three, or maybe even four, what have you. Doesn't matter regardless. Anybody that's listening is better than just me talking to myself, although I do that quite a bit. But I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this fabulous uh, podcast. There's no other podcast that's better or as informative or detailed as I am. So thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot. Really helps me out in terms of content. It really helps me out with subscribers and anything else that I really need to. So just thank you for that. Thank you so much for being a part of it. If you guys haven't already, please drop a like on this video if you have not done so already. Also, if you're able to, too. Also, drop a comment down below, too, just to let me know that you guys are on here and you are listening to the podcast. And also, as well, please hit that subscribe button, too, and the notification bell. Anytime I put up new content, anytime I put up anything that's new or informative or anything that I want you guys to know about, um, in terms of football or maybe some important updates of the channel and everything, you guys will be able to get the first time content when it's all posted or when I go live. So all that stuff is great. If you're able to do that, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, hit the comments button down below, and do what you got to do. But just do me a favor and please, 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 please help me out. Help me have this podcast grow to be the best that I know it can be. And with that, you will help me with all the success that I know I can do for the near future of the podcast. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you everybody. Thank you to that one person that is on right now. It really does mean a lot. It really ensures that the consistent people that are on every single week are also doing everything that they can to listen and be able to take away with what I do have to offer for you guys. I know these YouTube videos, I know these live streams and everything tend to be very tedious. They tend to be very arduous and very long. But I assure you guys, it's only for your own benefit. And if it really does help too, I could also put in timestamps too. If it really helps you a lot, so that way you don't have to listen to just the full on podcast, but you'll be able to look at the certain points in each of my live streams in terms of what I'm talking about, and maybe the possible teams or games that I'm talking about that you may have the most interest in. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier for you to navigate. But regardless, we are getting ready, guys. We're already about to enter into the month of December, which means it's time, once again, to go over the playoff picture. So before we do, before we do that, we're going to go over the playoff picture before we do the slides, before we really get into like the meat of what happened during Week 12 and Thanksgiving weekend. We'll take a look at the playoff picture. Some changes happened over the weekend, not anything really too crazy, but let's talk about the AFC side first. The Chiefs are at number one right now. I don't really see them unless if they lose the next couple of games, within the next couple of weeks. They're staying at number one until further notice, until somebody kicks them out. Then you've got the Miami Dolphins at number two. They just retook the lead from the Bills away from the AFC East. Then number three, you got the Tennessee Titans. Number four, the Baltimore Ravens, which we'll talk about them too. I really want to talk about that game in terms of how that game went and how it could hurt them in terms of a division title. Then you also got the Buffalo Bills. They're at number five. Number six is the Cincinnati Bengals. And then number seven is the New York Jets. So the Jets coming off of a big win we'll talk about too over the Chicago Bears are just made their number seven spot right now in the AFC picture. And then with the other teams that are looking on the outside looking in, the Patriots, who lost to the Vikings on Thursday night. Then you've got the Los Angeles Chargers at number 9, the Indianapolis Colts at number 10. Number 11 is the Jacksonville Jags, and then number 12 is the Raiders. So the Las Vegas Raiders. So each of these teams here, all of these teams here, with the exception of, um, obviously the ones that might be winning the division right now, like the Chiefs, Titans, you know, anything can really change between now and by the time the playoffs come. And seeding is going to be really, really vital in terms of what's going to happen within the next couple of weeks and different matchups and everything. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what will happen. And then with Deshaun Watson coming back for the Cleveland Browns, we'll talk about that a little bit too. That might shake up some things on the AFC side. So, still a lot of football left, still about 7 games left, but it's coming by very quickly. And, some of these teams could see the playoffs. Some teams may not, but that just goes by the luck of the draw and the matchups that go on. So any of those possible teams like the Patriots, the Chargers, the Colts, Jags, Raiders, they're all teams right now that could be fighting for that last potential spot right now in the Jets. So just keep that in mind. All right, next, the NFC side of things. We got the Philadelphia Eagles, who are at number 1 right now. Nothing really changed there over the weekend, but coming off of a very big win over the Green Bay Packers. We'll talk about that game too. Number 2 is the Minnesota Vikings. That's potentially, they're a game behind the Eagles, but right now they're looking like they're the team to beat right now. They're a for real team, and I've been talking about it within the last couple of weeks of the Vikings. They've been playing some really solid football lately. Number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. Number 4, the Tampa Bay Bucks. That's an either way kind of division and seeing who will win that one. But right now it looks like the Bucks might win it just based off of how mediocre or bad the other teams have been lately. Number 5, the Dallas Cowboys. Number 6 is the New York Giants. My Giants / G-Men, that's what I call them. And then number 7, the Washington Commanders. That's really been coming on a real hot streak lately. We'll talk about them too in just a bit. So be on the lookout for the Commanders. Then you've got other teams that are on the outside looking in. You got the Seahawks, you got the Falcons, and then you got the Lions. And then the rest of these teams here are looking like, besides the Cardinals, it really doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot of other changes that are really going to be happening here. I don't really see the Packers really making it. I don't see the Panthers making it to the playoffs. And I definitely don't see the Saints, the Rams, or the Chicago Bears making it to the playoffs this year. So the NFC side looks like it's looking pretty sharp there with full of NFC East teams. With the one team that could potentially make it into the last wildcard spot, depending on how either the Giants or the Commanders do, and that's the Seahawks. And maybe even the Falcons could too. But the rest of the teams right now, just by the way they're playing, not sure if a playoff berth is going to be mentioned or really even a thing for this year. So just want to throw that out there. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody that's on right now. No, we have one person on right now. That's okay. We'll help this channel grow to be the best that it possibly can be. So, guys, just don't forget to like this video right now, right here, right now. Also, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and also hit that notification bell. Anytime you guys hit that notification bell, it helps me really know who's at the listening to the channel right now, and then those who are really wanting to really get upbeat and really want to really get to be involved in all my football activities and everything. It's just really important to me. So if you do all those things, guys, we're gonna be successful in this. So please do me all those favors. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below. Give me some content. Give me some things to talk about, and I will do so. But with all that being said, the moment that everybody has been waiting for, let's talk about the week. Let's talk about week 12. So straight up this week, we are already at number 12. Week number 12. We're already 7 games away. 7 games left from really making a statement here and seeing who's going to make the playoffs and Super Bowl time. This is like really where the NFL really starts to get really hot. And people are really starting to focus on the football season, like who's going to make it, who's not. It's all going to be really interesting. But for week number 12, I'm 8-7. I did 8-7 this week. I thought I did pretty decent for the most part. Some of my primetime games were definitely, which primetime has seemed to be like really a big struggle for me this year. But regardless, though, my overall right now is 95, 82, and 1. So I've been doing pretty solid this year in terms of my straight up predictions. And like I said, I'm not doing my best bets. I'm not doing against the spread or anything like that. Those records this year, but maybe doing them next year once I get more of a fan base going and getting more people to come on to the channel. All right, let's take a look at the top 10 teams after week 12. Sorry, I didn't get to fix that graphic there for week 12, but let's get started. Number 10 is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are at number 10 this week. You can pretty much tell why they are at number 10. Just they're struggling right now in terms of offense. I think, still a good team. I think they're a team that could make the playoffs and maybe might be able to make a name for themselves. But right now, with the way this team is playing right now, looking very inconsistent. We're not really sure what's going on with this team defensively, and we don't really know what's going on offensively either. They just don't look like the same old Ravens team that we all knew and loved a couple of years ago. Number 9 is the New England Patriots. I know their loss to the Vikings was very crucial, especially if you're talking like playoff implications. But regardless of the Patriots, they're still a pretty darn good team, a pretty good defense. Of course, you can't go wrong with that defense that they do have there with Matthew Judon and Jack Jones, all of them right there right now. That's really been making the story of the Patriots really about the defense, and still really good defense. They still can put up some points and beat you in any given way. So they're still in my number 10. Then you got number 8, you got the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners, man, I feel like they could be higher than this, but I left them at number 8 because I still think their offense, yes, they're hit or miss. They've been good some games. Some games they've kind of been off the radar. I think really this week, yes, the defense played excellent against the Saints, but it was against Andy Dalton. That's not really too shocking to shut him out. But regardless, so I think the offense still has, some holes in there. I mean, they have all the pieces that they do need. Like they have the running back with Christian McCaffrey. They got the receivers and everything. But I think the biggest setback really for them is Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think that's kind of what prevents them from having a better record than what they would have. But if Trey Lance was in the picture, they probably wouldn't even make the top 10 just because of how raw Trey Lance is right now. Number 7 is the Miami Dolphins. I could see the Dolphins jumping up within the next week or so, depending. I'm not sure exactly who they play within next week, but yeah, the Miami Dolphins right now. The Miami Dolphins are a team that's looking so fast. They're a fast team offensively. They're very hard to stop offensively. They're very fast and physical in terms of offense. Tua's having a better year than everybody anticipated, including myself. I was a little bit down on Tua. But with the way that the Dolphins have been playing as of late in terms of offense, and they're just showing that they're the team that's really going to be hard to beat when it comes to the AFC East. But we'll see how they do within the next couple of weeks when they have to go play the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, the New England Patriots in New England, and then when they have to play the Jets again. So some tough teams they do have coming up soon, but we'll see how they do. We'll see how they match up well. Number 6 is the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, the Vikings beat the Patriots on Thursday night on Thanksgiving. Yes, it was a nice win for them. Good for the Vikings. Congrats to them. But still, they still have some holes. They still have some flaws that they really need to get themselves back on track for. Offensively, I thought they played really well. I mean, Justin Jefferson is that guy, man. I mean, he's just so hard to stop. Nobody can stop him right now. He's just so good in everything that he really does. And even with the Patriots, they just kind of relaxed on Justin Jefferson. They didn't really plan around him as much, so which was a little disappointing to the Patriots, but we'll talk about that game when that time comes. And number 5 is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys continue to rumble on defense in their pass rush, although their pass rush to me when they played the Giants last week did not really seem like the pass rush that I thought they were going to be against the Giants. I thought it was going to be like a real difficult game for the Giants. And yeah, the Giants did lose and everything, but they didn't really lose by a whole lot. And maybe that's a lot of in terms of offense with Dak throwing some interceptions, but but there's still a rock solid defense that puts them at number 5. Number 4 is the Cincinnati Bengals, man. Had a real nice, impressive win against the Titans. I thought for sure when I watched them play the Tennessee Titans, I really thought that that game looked like it was going to be close, which it was. On paper, it really was a really close game, and it was a pretty good matchup. Really, I think it was one of the toughest defenses that Joe Burrow and this offensive line of the Bengals have faced all year, but they were able to prevail, and they played a pretty good game against them. I thought they played a better game against the Titans than they did last year in the AFC divisional game. Number 3 is the Buffalo Bills. We're going to talk about them first, after my top 10 teams. But yeah, the Buffalo Bills, yeah, they're still a Super Bowl contender. They're still one of the best teams in the AFC. But man alive, I really don't understand this team right now, and I don't understand what they're doing right now. They looked like real early in the year when they beat up on the Rams and they beat up on the Titans. They looked like a team that was ready to really rumble and get going, but they have not really been able to do that within the last 3 to 4, 5 weeks, possibly. They just seem like they're really slowing down. I just don't understand why, but we're going to talk about that when we get there. Number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs, man. I really could put the Chiefs at number 1 right now, other than the Eagles. But I'm putting the Chiefs at number 2, basically because they lost 2 games to the Bills and they lost to the Colts. So that kind of does put a little bit of a damper on why I can't really put them at number 1 yet. We'll see. Maybe I will at some point. But the Chiefs, man, Patrick Mahomes, him and Andy Reid, they're just a dynamic duo. They're really getting themselves back on track. They're looking like a pretty solid AFC Super Bowl contender. If I'm being completely honest right now, they really are looking like a team that could go to the Super Bowl again, and they could possibly win it. So that's the Chiefs right there. They had a nice win there last week against the Rams. I feel like they really, if they would have made a couple more plays, I feel like they could have absolutely positively put up like 40 to 50 points on how bad the Rams have been really all year. The number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to talk about this team. I'm not sure why I still have them at number 1, but they're still a good offense, man. I mean, the offense is just so red hot right now. It's very hard for any team to stop them, and I get that. But I feel like with the team that they played in the Green Bay Packers, I feel like they should have probably put up a lot more, and they shouldn't have given up as much as they did. But we'll talk about that game when we get to the Sunday night review. All right, so let's talk about this game. So I talked about the Bills at number 3 and why they worry me right now. So let's talk about that. So, yes, the Bills ruined the Lions' Thanksgiving. Yes, they did. I get that completely. They absolutely ruined the Lions' Thanksgiving, which I knew the Bills probably would have a shot to come out and actually win this game. But I told you this game was not worth the 9.5 points. It was not worth the spread, the bet on Thanksgiving. And I told you all as well that this would probably be a closer game and a tougher game for the Bills than people think. And sure enough, guys, guess what? I was right. And I'm not saying that just to be proud of myself or hear myself speak or anything, but it's true. I mean, I love the Bills. I love Josh Allen. I love Stephon Diggs. Like, everything about the Bills team that I really love right now on paper, like, they could be the most dominant team in the NFL right now. But why aren't they playing the way that they played in the beginning of the year? Well, I mean, it's just a lot. I mean, the defense, I think, is really letting up too many points. I think they're susceptible to the run game, which we saw them, really separate themselves away from the Lions' run game. They had a run game planned pretty well, and I think they just, I don't think it was the greatest matchup for the Bills in terms of, run defense. It was very tough for them to be able to stop the run with, Jamal Williams, and it was definitely hard to stop, DeAndre Swift a little bit too. I mean, and also Jared Goff too. I'm not gonna lie, Jared Goff, if he would have made a couple of more big plays, if Dan Campbell would have given him the opportunity to really make a couple more big statement plays, I feel like the Lions probably would have scored a lot more points than they did. But they didn't because, when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, the better coaching comes into play, and that's really what the Bills has really been the story about this year. Is just mostly because of Josh Allen's ability and Stephon Diggs, and just some big defensive coaching calls too that really makes or breaks your game. So yeah, I mean, I felt bad for the Lions. I personally, deep down, I kind of wanted to see the Lions actually win a Thanksgiving game for just this one time. But it was very disappointing to see them lose the way that they did. I felt like they had the game in the bag. It looked like it was a game that could have gone into overtime. But really, it was just the Lions defense that just gave up the biggest play of the game, and probably the biggest play that Stephon Diggs had all game. And I have to say that right now, that the way that the Bills' passing game was in this whole entire game, I felt like the Lions did a pretty good job with getting pressure to Allen. I think they did a pretty good job with like trying not to give up as many big plays as they normally would to any other team in terms of running. But I thought they had a pretty good game plan in terms with the Bills. I think they had the right calls. I think they made the right calls. I think they had a good offensive play call. I think the defense for the Lions, yeah, is still not very good, but I thought they had a pretty good matchup with the Bills. I felt like they gave the Bills a run for their money in terms of in terms of passing. Like I felt like they had a hard time getting the ball to like the big time players like Stephon Diggs. He really didn't have a whole lot of receptions in this whole game. And, Isaiah McKenzie having a couple of big plays here and there. I believe he led the receiving yardage in this game. And Stephon Diggs led the receptions. And I have no idea what's going on with Gabe Davis this year. I am very disappointed with the way that Gabe Davis has played this year. I feel like he has not really been like a true number two receiver for this team. He really hasn't been able to connect well with the Bills' offense in terms of the passing game. He hasn't really made a good connection with Josh Allen that much this year. For basically really one game, he had like one really good game against the Steelers. But other than that, he hasn't really been able to show off the skill and the promise that we thought he would have had in the offseason after the way they played the Chiefs last year. But yeah, I mean, I thought the Lions defensively, I really didn't think they played all that bad in this game. I thought they got a consistent pass rush. I thought they were able to, I thought the secondary isn't very good for the Lions normally, but I thought defensively, I think they got a good pass rush going in there. I think with some of the players that really made some good plays, like Deshaun Elliott made some good plays, Malcolm Rodriguez, and you have Alex Anzalone, who came up with the big interception too that put them in a potential to possibly win the game for the Lions and come up with a good offensive drive for the Golf and the Lions. But the better team at the end of the day won. I mean, I'll just say that right now just to get it off my shoulders, really, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the Bills are obviously the better team than the Lions. There's no question about it. It doesn't even come remotely close. But I think in terms of the way that the Bills have been playing, they've been playing a lot of mistake-like football as of late. And the Lions were able to capitalize it on some big plays when they really needed to. The biggest play that they really didn't do it was able to stop Stephon Diggs from getting that, that 30, 40-yard gain. It was like a 30-some yard gain. That put them in the potential to, get a field goal in there and possibly win the game. So, I mean, that was more of lack on coaching in terms of defensively. And, it happens. I mean, it really does happen, and it's unfortunate that it has to happen to the Lions basically every single year. But I felt like it was a game worth watching as, if you are a Lions fan or a Bills Bills fan. I felt like this was a game that was worth watching as a Lions fan because I thought the Lions did all the right things. I thought they had the right calls. I think Jared Goff did everything that he possibly could. Just that one really big play at the end of the game is what really settled it. And to be quite honest with you, the Bills really shouldn't have celebrated the way that they did because they should have absolutely blew the doors off of this team here. I mean, you go in there, you beat the Super Bowl defending champs of the Rams, which isn't a very good team right now, but early in the year, no one knows if they're a good team or not. And then you're looking at like other teams like the Jets, and you lose to the Jets. Really, that's a team you should be able to really match up well and beat up on a little bit, even though, and I love the Jets this year. I think they're good defensively, but, offensively, they hadn't really done a whole lot until Mike White came on Sunday. Like those games. And the Vikings, where you had that game won. You had the game won against the Vikings, but you fumble on your own goal line and you cough up for a touchdown, and then you lose that game in overtime. And then you lose the game to Miami based off of Isaiah McKenzie not getting out of bounds and ending the game with no timeouts left. So, I mean, the Bills really, for the most part, if they really were focused, if they were a team that didn't make a lot of mistakes, and this team offensively makes so many mistakes it's not even funny, then they probably would be the undefeated team right now. The only undefeated team right now if they don't make those costly mistakes that cost them a few of those games. And this game should have been one of those games where they should have lost because I felt the Lions did play better than the Bills. But at the end of the day, the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs connection is what really changed the overall view of the game. And at the end of the day, really the better team on paper is the team that should win, and they did. But I felt like watching them after with them, like celebrating and hugging each other and whatnot. Definitely is not a game that I would be very happy about, even after a win. I'm just saying that to be dead honest with you. I think you need to really look back into the playbook. I think you need to look back on film, and then you got to really look at yourself and see, like, are we a Super Bowl team? Why we should have blown the doors off of this team way more than we did. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I'm going to say about that game. All right, the Cowboys-Giants game. I will say this right now about the Cowboys-Giants game. I was not really anticipating a whole lot out of the Giants offense, and I kind of thought I was. Oh, I did say that on my live stream for last week. So I'm not surprised that the Giants got beat up the way that they did. However, I ended up losing money on this game, and I'll tell you why. So I didn't take the spread for the Cowboys, okay? I didn't want to take the 10 points because I didn't think that they would have covered the 10 points, and I was right. They didn't end up covering. But what I was upset about in this game is it basically came in garbage time. I had this game with money on the line, and I don't bet a lot of money on these football games, too. I have better things to put my money on. But at the end of the day, I put the game on the under because I felt like with both offenses, they're very similar to one another. Like, if you watch the Giants and you watch the Cowboys offense, they both really like to run. The Cowboys, on the other hand, seems more balanced than the Giants because the Giants don't really have a good receiver on their team. The Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb, and they have Michael Gallup. Had a pretty good game in this game. I was surprised of how, Michael Gallup has been pretty quiet this year for the Cowboys. He hasn't really done a whole lot to really say much. But you've got some playmakers. You've got some good weapons to really go around. Like you've got CeeDee Lamb. I think Dalton Schultz had probably one of his best games of the year. This game here as a tight end, and basically tight ends have been like a bust this year. And the only bust that you probably wouldn't have, you probably drafted in your fantasy leagues like Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, like all the other tight ends this year hasn't really done anything special this year, but Dalton Schultz had a good game, though, too. He had a good game plan, too. And Dak, I felt like, besides, like, the 2 interceptions, which were pretty boneheaded decisions for Dak to be able to force those throws down the field the way that they did, I felt like the Cowboys had a pretty good game plan. I thought they did pretty well. They did everything that I thought they were going to do. Like, I thought they were going to give the ball to Zeke Elliott. Thank you to my fantasy football team for Zeke on that. I thought Zeke had a pretty good game. He had some big explosive runs when he really needed to at times, which is something that was, the Giants normally plays good run defense. We saw it earlier in the year, but they're looking like they're starting to regress a little bit as the year goes on. Tony Pollard had some plays here and there, but definitely not really anywhere like, we thought that he would have had in this game, and he probably could have had some more touches in this game, but most of the touches went to Zeke Elliott, and, he had a good game there. But what I was concerned about at the Cowboys, and anyone can disagree with me on this, I didn't think that the Cowboys pass rush or the defense played as well against the Giants as I thought they would have. Yes, the Giants scored basically 13 points for pretty much the entire game except for garbage time. But I felt like there was going to be a lot more sacks. I thought there was going to be a lot more mistake-prone going with Daniel Jones. I thought there was going to be more turnovers and what have you. But really, it wasn't anything really like that, I felt like. Just watching this game, like but Saquon really didn't have a whole lot to really do. He didn't really do a whole lot in this whole game like he did last week, again, the week before to the Detroit Lions. This is a team where, you would think that the Cowboys are way more way more ahead of their time. You would think that they have a lot more explosive plays. You would think they have all the playmakers. They would be playing better than the Giants. But the Giants did everything that they possibly could to win this game at some points. But they really shot themselves in the foot, and they gave up too many big plays in the second half. Like the first half, I thought they had a really good game. I thought the first half for the Giants was probably one of the better first halves that I saw this year than they've played pretty much the entire year. I thought the first half for this game, I thought the Giants looked well. I think defensively they were looking well. They were able to get some points where they really needed to. Jones had a pretty good game, and I know I've been critical of Daniel Jones in the past, but I feel like this is his year that he's been doing quite well, and to be quite truthful with you, he has been doing better. I feel like he's way more content with the coaching that is in with him, and I feel like he fits into the system for this offense a lot more than he did previously under Pat Shurmur and Joe Judge. But yeah, I was impressed with the way the Giants defense played the entire game. They were able to force turnovers on Dak. They were able to make some big stops, defensive rush, pass rush. You know, they did everything that they really needed to. The only thing they were very susceptible to was, the run game. And I think that's kind of like the biggest hurt in this game, knowing that, there's a lot more that you could do in this game. But with the good running backs like Zeke and Tony Pollard, that's tough. That's tough to really stop those two running backs. And it's hard to stop the run game of the Cowboys when they really get hot in running the ball. So overall, I felt the game could have been a lot better obviously, if they had all the receivers and they were all healthy. I mean, the Giants did have some injuries here. They were out some players here in this game, which did hurt them a little bit in terms of trying to win this game. But I'm telling you, every single year, regardless of like the matchups, regardless of the records, regardless of the division they're in, this is always like these are two really good teams that know each other very well, and one team may be the superior over the other, but you never count either one of the teams out because of how good the rivalry has been in quite a long time. And just knowing that when you go in to Dallas and you're playing the Cowboys and you're playing for the Giants franchise, this is like a historical rivalry going on between the two teams. And it's very vital that you're able to perform to expectations. It's vital for you to really know about the playbook that they have. It's vital for you to really understand a game plan for the Cowboys. Like, I felt that the Giants, besides losing this game, they had all those things. The biggest part of it really was because the defense started to come on for the Cowboys that really didn't play that great the entire game. But then you also had Dak not making any of those mistakes anymore. That's really what it is. If Dak is mistake free and the Cowboys defense plays like the Cowboys defense that we all know and love, it's tough to score on them. And that's exactly what the Giants learned in this season. They learned about that in this game. So you can't go wrong there. But other than that, it was I thought the Giants didn't play all that bad. Not great, but I didn't think they played all that bad. And I felt the Cowboys defense really didn't play up to where I thought they were going to. I thought they kind of were going to shut them down all the way, and I really didn't think they were going to be able to, they weren't going to allow like big plays for the Giants, but they did. And that's basically because the offense had some turnovers, and that's, they were kind of, at that point, earlier on in the game, it was, they could have been very costly and it could have gotten really ugly really quickly. But yeah, the Cowboys are a team to be reckoned with, and the Giants too. But I feel like the Cowboys right now are better than the Giants in terms of player wise. I think they have more talent than the Giants do. But at the same time, too, the coaching staff belongs to the Giants, but also to, the talent in the athletic system is going to overcome eventually, and the Cowboys do find ways to win some of the next few games, and they're a tough team to really score on, and they're showing that right now. They're a tough team to score on. That not many teams want to play them moving forward. All right, so this is a game I kind of want to talk a little bit about. Yeah, the Patriots, man. I mean, this game kind of annoys me. As someone that really likes watching Patriots football games, as someone that really likes Bill Belichick, as people that likes Tom Brady that played for the Patriots for all those years, and really has had a lot of respect for the Patriots, even though my team has beaten them in the Super Bowl twice under with Tom Brady in center, and when we had Eli, and when they had Eli Manning. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the Patriots. I really do. But I got to tell you, this was probably one of the worst defensive games from the Patriots I probably have seen in a long time. You come off some really big defensive games. I get it. Like, this is the toughest matchup for you in the Vikings. It probably was a very mismatched game for the Patriots in terms of the Vikings offensively. Like, Justin Jefferson had some really big plays here. Adam Thielen looked like the old time, prime time Adam Thielen. Run game was very good, and you have everything that you need, but your defense can't play up to where you thought they would have. Like, yeah, the last few weeks, you played the Jets. Okay, you held them to 3 points. That's not that hard to do. You held the Colts to 3 points. Okay, like another team that's not that hard to do on. It's not that hard to hold 3 points on teams like the Colts or the Jets. As much as I like those two teams, that's not very hard to do. Then you beat, the Jets beforehand and you held them to 17 points. Like, I get it. Like, I really do get it. But at the same time, though, you're a team that's supposed to play good defense. You're like a defensive minded coach that's supposed to prepare for these games and really get going with, like, really coming up with good game plans in terms of, like, how to beat, like, a better offense. And that's what it was. Like, the Vikings offense was good. And they were very good. They were so good that the Patriots had a hard time being able to stop them. Like, they could do with the Patriots. I mean, the Vikings did everything that they wanted to do. They wanted to run the ball. They were successful in it. They wanted to pass the ball to Justin Jefferson. They were able to do that with no problems. I mean, yeah, in the beginning of the time, yeah, Kirk Cousins threw a pick. That happens. It is what it is there. But they had a lot of success in terms of what they wanted to do. They had a lot of success in passing the ball, and that's exactly what they did. They passed the ball to Justin Jefferson. They gave some big plays to Adam Thielen. They did everything that they wanted to do. That's exactly what they wanted to do. Defensively, however, on the other side for the Vikings was just like the Patriots the other way with facing against the Vikings offense. Very susceptible to the run, very susceptible to the passing game. And I got to say, Mac Jones played his best game of the year because of it. It was a mismatch. The Vikings defense, not the greatest defense in the world. They've had some flashes of good moments this year, but they have not been good. In my opinion, I don't think their defense has been good, but it gave Mac Jones the opportunity to play the football game the best way that he wanted to play. And he played a very good game. I felt like they got ripped off when he threw that second touchdown pass to Hunter Henry. I believe he was in, but the referee said he wasn't in. I guess I get that, but that was kind of like a costly call right there. I mean, I guess you can understand they didn't want to they wanted to overturn that because it didn't look clear and obvious, but in terms of the catch, but I digress about that. I think they got ripped off for that. And they also got ripped off, I believe, in terms of the face mask. I think they did have a face mask call that was waiting there for them to call. Unfortunately, in their case, they didn't get the call. And that's why they lost the game that they did, is because of some calls that were not very agreeable. And not that the calls have been very bad this year. I feel like the calls for the referees' calls this year has been very good this year and very not so problematic to like certain teams. I feel like this year I have not seen really any really big controversial calls that really has cost the team this year. So that's a good thing to see. But I feel like there was some in this game, and probably one of the more controversial calls I've seen in this game this year. But yeah, Mac Jones had his best game of the year. I thought he played very well, and I think he put up a lot of yardage. He put up like almost like he put up like 382 yards, which is masterful for him. Ramondre Stevenson had some good moments too when he really had the opportunity to run the ball. Hunter Henry got himself on fire. Nelson Aguilar was a big part of the help too. Jacoby Myers, I don't know what's up with Jacoby Myers. I don't think he's their true number one receiver. I don't know what's really going on with him, but kind of think he's not. He's kind of a waste of time, really, for the Patriots. He hasn't been terrible and can get open at times, but not really anywhere to like I thought that he would have been this year. Devontae Parker, solid game, not great, but solid game. But yeah, I mean, most of the credit goes to like Ramondre Stevenson for running the ball and being able to be, the top guy in the receptions and being in the run game. And give credit to Mac Jones and playing a phenomenal game. Yeah, they played an awesome offensive game that just didn't end up going their way. And it's basically due because of the lack of talent that they have on offensive line. Their offensive line, if I'm being completely honest with you, the Patriots offensive line has not been all that great within the last couple of weeks. We saw that against the Jets. They let up like 6 sacks against Mac Jones, and they let up quite a few here against the Vikings. So offensive line is a big issue. That's a big issue in New England. That kind of changed the factor of the game and how it played out is what it really comes down to. That's all I got to say on that. All right, the Titans and the Bengals game. I watched pretty much most of this game on NFL Red Zone, and I've got to say for this game too, man. I mean, the Bengals are exactly where they're the exact team that I thought they were going to be this year. There's no question about it. But they continue to prove why this team can win a Super Bowl, why this team is worthy to beat almost anybody. And it's because of Joe Burrow. Now, granted, he does not have his main guy in Jamar Chase, but he does have another shiny tool that probably other teams wish they had, and that is T. Higgins. Yes, T. Higgins gets hurt quite often. That is a fact. But when he is healthy and he gets himself open and he has a really good game plan, he is your number one receiver. And he's been able to step up as the number one receiver for this team for the last several weeks since taking over for Jamar Chase because of injury. He's a very good number one receiver. I feel like him and Joe Burrow have a great connection with each other. Like the passing game, and guys, it's just the passing game. I think when you have T. Higgins in there, you have Jamar Chase. Yeah, you have like two of the best receivers in the game, no question about it. And then when you lose one of those guys out, it opens up a lot of opens up a lot of open targets and more receptions for other players on this team, like Tyler Boyd, for example, who's been very quiet ever since the Atlanta Falcons game. He hasn't really done anything much more than than he did in that week. But a very good number 3 receiver. Then you've got Hayden Hurst. I like Hayden Hurst. To be quite honest with you, he's a very underrated tight end. I think the times when he played with the Atlanta Falcons, I think that was kind of like his time. He kind of thought that his career of football was going to start dwindling down a little bit. It wasn't going to really be the name of the game for him anymore. But, since joining the Bengals, I feel like Zach Taylor's offense and what Joe Burrow can do for him fits quite well. I think he fits quite well into the system of the Bengals and what they try to do offensively. Offensive line is still an issue, but the run game was also there too, which is something that was really important. And maybe a lot of teams may say some things. Some teams might like having Samaje Perine on his team. Like, there were some people that were criticizing Perine, and I get that. I really do. But at the same time, though, too, I mean, not for nothing. And I like Joe Mixon, but Joe Mixon really has been very inconsistent this year. And I don't know if it's because of the dreadful offensive line for the Bengals that they have, or if it's basically because Joe Burrow doesn't really, they don't really need to run the ball as much if they get a passing game going. I don't know what the story is, but he has been very inconsistent this year. I feel like with Perine, when you have Perine in there, he fits into the system quite well. He's your receiver in the backfield. He's your running back. He can get you some yardage too. Like, he's a solid backup running back for this team. And if Joe Mixon were to get hurt again and not come back for the rest of the season, I think Perine could do a really good job filling in those big holes. And I think he could do a really good job with making some big plays on his feet and in the passing game too. So with that being said, like Perine, does this make does this make like an open room or like an open world for Joe Mixon? Does he finally move on to another team elsewhere? No, I think the Bengals are going to do whatever they can to keep Joe Mixon. I mean, if there is a video at some point, if there is a podcast, or at some point there are newspaper articles or whatever about Joe Mixon being traded to another team, I will make a video of it, and I will point out like some teams that could really use a good running back right now, like uh, the Bears could probably use him right now because David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, yeah, they're good running backs and everything, but what if you have like a star like Joe Mixon? That would be really cool to have. Or if you could have like maybe like what other teams could use like a running back right now? Um, maybe I don't know that many teams off the top of my head. Maybe the Washington Commanders could use like a running back like Joe Mixon. That would be really cool to see. Unless if they're going to roll on with Brian Robinson, which looks like that might be a deal. Or maybe by the time uh, by the time like Cordell Patterson finally decides to retire, maybe he could go to the Falcons and do something for the Falcons offense there in the run game because they like to focus on the run game. As long as Arthur Smith is there, they're running that ball and you know it. Or they could send him to the Carolina Panthers. He could help out, whoever the quarterback is there. Or, there are some teams that are, or maybe the Broncos have pretty good with Javonte Williams. I think they stick with him. Like, there's a lot of things, like, there's a lot of teams that could probably die for Joe Mixon. And if this franchise also cannot keep T. Higgins, too, you know how many teams out there that will want a number one receiver like T. Higgins? Like, think about like teams that could really use T. Higgins right now. Like, if the Bengals had to get rid of him right now, okay, if they were able to get rid of him because they can't hold him from cap space, there are a lot of teams. I feel like 31 other teams would want to pick up T. Higgins in free agency or in a trade. They can get him in a trade. That would probably be even worth more of his value. You could, I could see him playing for like Green Bay Packers. Him and Christian Watson could be the best, a great duo right there. I could see him going to, not the Chicago Bears because they're not very good in the passing. I don't really know if Justin Fields is the passer guy kind of for them yet. Maybe like the 49ers could use like a good, reliable receiver like him if they don't end up keeping Debo. You could have him, or you could take, or like other teams that could take him. Maybe the Titans could end up taking him too because they need a receiver, like a real good receiver. That would be something good for Ryan Tannehill. Or maybe the Colts, him and Michael Pittman going at it. That's a good duo right there. Like, there's a lot of teams that if T. Higgins was gone right now, 31 other football teams would pick him up right now. That's how seriously good and how deep that this Bengals team really is. Despite offensive line, that's like their biggest issue. They are a very deep team. That's why I believe they go to the Super Bowl, because it's just the talent that they have around them. And when you have Joe Burrow as your quarterback too, and have he's mostly a pocket passer, and when you don't have a good offensive line, and you need someone to really try to protect him and make some big plays outside of the pocket, he can do it. Like, he is movable, he can run, and he can get outside of the pocket. And when he does get outside of the pocket, he does make some good plays on his feet too, and he can make some good plays running outside of the pocket to get a big, get some big yardage. And that's just how he is. That's just how his play style is. So I like what the Bengals have. I feel like besides the Chiefs, maybe another team too, the Bills, that could be a tough game for them. Like, besides like those two teams right now, the Bengals could really could match up really well with just about anybody. And if they were to play like teams like, maybe the Browns is more of a bad example for them because they usually lose to the Browns. But if they play like good teams, like maybe, I think they would match up well with obviously they'll match up well with the Titans again. They could match up well with the Ravens again. I think they kind of get a little bit better against the Ravens if the Ravens don't play good defense that day. What other teams that they could match up well with? That's like playoff teams right now. Maybe, the Chiefs, they could beat the Chiefs. That's a good matchup for them right there. The Bills, that's a good matchup for them there. They could take advantage of and beat. Like there are teams that the Bengals can beat, and they really can just about beat anybody. And that's what they did against the Titans. Yeah, the Titans are one dimensional with Derrick Henry. I get that. There's not really a consistent besides last week, I thought Ryan Tannehill had a good game, and Traylon Burks, catching some really unbelievable catches. My goodness, that one catch that he made was just so unbelievable. Besides them, the Titans are still a good team nonetheless. Like they're a good defense, guys. Like there's no shame for the Bengals. Like if you say the Bengals they just beat the Titans, like big deal, then you need to go get your head examined or your eyes examined because you know how good this Titans team is. You know how good this coaching staff is. They're very good. And I think they're going to give the Eagles a hard time next week. And we'll talk about that tomorrow night in that predictions video for week 13. But nonetheless, yeah, I mean, this is a good matchup for the Bengals. They did a really nice job. They had some really good plays. I thought the defense for the Titans did a really good job. But at the end of the day, Joe Burrow just came through a little bit more than what Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill did. I thought the run defense for the Bengals did an excellent job. An excellent job against Derrick Henry, and they were able to hold him up pretty well too. That's a tough run defense that Derrick Henry faced, and he had trouble facing this run defense the last couple of years when they played the Bengals, even when they were bad a couple of seasons ago, the year of COVID when Joe Burrow's his first year in the league. You know, their run defense is there, and they stopped Derrick Henry well. This is the defense for the Bengals that we saw a year ago, what we saw in the beginning of the year, and we'll start continuing to see throughout the rest of the year. This Bengals team is hot, but don't take out the Titans either. Don't get frustrated with the Titans too. And the biggest reason why they lost this game, and I felt like if they did not have this penalty, they probably would have had a better opportunity to win the game. But when they ran into the long snapper on that field goal try for the Bengals, what they obviously got that in well, but that was like the biggest part of the play of the whole game, and that didn't even give the Titans a chance to get back into the game. And even though the Titans probably wouldn't have been able to come back from that kind of a deficit with the limitations that are around Ryan Tannehill, you took away something from the Titans that they could have probably been able to do well in. That's just a straight up fact. And in some cases, yeah, maybe the Bengals did get lucky there, but they just matched up very well with the Titans. They played a better game. They had a better game plan, and they looked, offensively, they came to play. They came to play, and they came to, beat up on the defense for, the Bengals. And it was a very similar score to last year's game too. So what does that tell you too? But yeah, this Bengals team is hot right now. But don't underestimate the Titans, though. Do not underestimate them. Yeah, definitely don't underestimate them. All right, so the Panthers may not exactly be out of it like we all thought they were, and here's why. All right, what do I mean by that? Are the Panthers a good team? Let's start that off. Are the Panthers a very good team? Well, outside of quarterback, I don't think they're that bad of a team. They're not great, but they're not that bad of a team. I think they have talent, but they're not that bad. Besides quarterback, of course. And defense is good. I like the Panthers' defense and what they do. And the reason why I say they're not out of it is because of one thing. Let me take a look. I'll show you guys again. I have it up still. I'll show you guys again and see what I mean by that. That they may not exactly be out of it. All right, so let's scroll down again. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I just got the notification that the Broncos-Chiefs game is no longer a Sunday Night Football game. Thank God. Thank God. Can't watch the Broncos anymore in primetime. They're just so bad. We'll get to them in a second. Yeah, the Panthers are at number 12 right now. Okay? But the rest of their schedule that they play, they have to play the Saints again. I believe they have to play the Saints again. Yeah, they do. They got to play the Bucks again. And what other teams did they have to play right now? So they got to play the Seahawks. But then not next week because this is their bye week coming up. But the following week, they got to play the Seahawks. Potential game that they could win. Steelers, we'll see. Maybe they could win that one. Lions, Man, we'll see. Maybe the Bucks and the Saints. Like, there are some games left for the Panthers that they could potentially win. And looking at this playoff picture here, guys, right now, take a look. Like, who else do the Packers have to play? The Bears for next week. The Dolphins. They may not even be able to beat the Dolphins. They have to play the Lions again. They got to play the Vikings again. And then if they are not out of it mathematically, like if other teams start to slip, like I could see the Falcons starting to slip here just by the way they played their game last week. And if the Seahawks start to play bad, which is a good potential, like that could open up that could open up like, teams that are on the outside looking in. Like, if some of these teams start falling down again, like, the Seahawks are a team that looks like they're probably going to start dwindling a little bit. The Falcons look like they're dwindling a little bit. The Lions might still hang around there, maybe. Packers might start going down a little bit, depending on, how they really play the next couple of weeks. That opens up some room for the Panthers to start climbing up there and probably even win, some games down the road. And, if the Commanders start losing too, which I don't think they're going to start losing because, the Commanders have been playing some pretty good football lately. They could be just at the number 8 spot. But does that mean that the Panthers are a very good team? Not in the least. They're not a very good team at all. But, there are some bad teams in the NFC. There are some teams that are getting ready to start to go downhill a little bit. And, like the Seahawks, the Falcons, obviously they beat the Falcons already. They could beat the Seahawks. Like, there are games that they could potentially win, and they could depend on, like, some of those teams kind of falling down the face of the earth a little bit. Now, as far as the Panthers go, like how their Sunday night game went, or the Sunday game went, Sam Darnold played well. Like, I've always liked Sam Darnold. I know a lot of people are always very critical of him, and I get that. But I like Sam Darnold. I was pretty happy last year when he was traded to the Panthers because I felt with the talent that they had in that time was like Christian McCaffrey, and they had DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. Like, with the receivers that they had and the defensive line that they had, like, I think Frankie Louvu was still there. But, like, a lot of those players, a lot of the players on that team that's there, they have the talent. Like, they really aren't that bad of a team. Like, the reason why they don't win these games like they should is because of coaching. It's because of play calling, and it's because of coaching and its lack of likability in the quarterback position. And ever since like the beginning of the year, we've seen Baker Mayfield play like trash. We've seen PJ Walker have like one really good game against the Falcons, but was better than Baker Mayfield by like a mile. And then, both of those guys go through a lot of injuries and they get benched for other players that they got to turn to Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, don't get me wrong, is not really much of an upgrade or downgrade from Baker Mayfield whatsoever. I think they're both around the same kind of talent. Maybe Sam Darnold is a little more talented than Baker Mayfield. We can do a comparison of that on another video one of these days. I might be able to debate with you whether Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield, which one of the better two top 3 picks in the 2018 draft is the better pick. But I think Sam Darnold at times when he is focused, when he plays good football, he plays really, really, really good football that is so hard to stop. And then other games he could throw the ball away, like 5 interceptions when he was in college at UCLA when he played, against the Ohio State when he threw 5 interceptions in Ohio State in their bowl game. Those are like it's very inconsistent with him. That's really like the biggest thing about Sam Darnold that he could not get right in his whole entire career, even before, when he was with the Jets, like even before he was drafted. Like, the guy is, very turnover prone. Like, he will turn the ball over in any given way possible. That's why I show this picture right here against the Broncos when he turned the ball over. He didn't quite turn over the ball here. He fumbled the ball, but he was able to muster his way in somehow for a touchdown. I think they counted as like a fumble recovery for a touchdown or whatever. I'm not sure what the stats was for that. You can take a look at that and see where that went. But yeah, the Panthers, I feel like, are a team that could potentially have a bright future. They could get better here you know, at the end of the year if some teams start drifting down a little bit. And I think they're going to probably be one of the out of like the other teams that we talked about before. I think they're one of the very few teams that could probably turn their their season around outside of like the Detroit Lions, but who am I to talk about though? But yeah, no, it was a good win for the Panthers. I'm glad they were finally able to win out of the division. I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I'm a big Sam Darnold guy. I liked him. I have always liked him when they drafted him. I liked him when he played for the Jets, but he just never was able to get the game consistently going. He wasn't able to get. He never really had a good good coaching staff to really be able to work to like his needs that they needed. But I feel like at this point, if I was talking about either the Panthers or the Broncos, if you were to ask me which one of these teams will make the playoffs tomorrow, I would probably trust the Panthers to make the playoffs over the Broncos, man. The Broncos offense, man, it's just so bad. Like, I was listening to Mitch Milani, if the Bottom Line View. If you haven't listened to him yet, please go to Bottom Line View here on YouTube and listen to him. He's got really good content. He's probably one of my favorite people to really listen to about football and everything. And for the most part, I agree with everything that he says. But I don't understand. He made it a good point. I don't get how the Broncos have won 3 games when they probably could have really lost. They really could have won like no games at all this year. Like some of those games that they won, they beat the 49ers. That's a team that's looking like they are poised for a Super Bowl run. Then you're looking at another win here against Jacksonville, which is a good win. Jacksonville's not a terrible team by any means, but you beat them, and then you beat they beat one other team too. They beat the Texans. The Texans are terrible, but other than that, like the rest of your losses, like you have like one score games and everything like that, like a lot of one score games, but your offense can't get anything started. Russell Wilson looks absolutely washed. He looks absolutely like he robbed the bank practically. He robbed the bank for the Broncos with paying them all that money. I don't know what's going to happen here on out as far as like how that's going to turn out for him in the near future if they continue to go with him in this contract, because that's just highway robbery with paying him that much money with very incompetent coaching, very overrated receivers, no offensive line, no run game, and for it, to pay him that much and he has not played good at all this year, it's highway robbery. Like I don't understand how the franchise, like the owners and everything, like I don't know how any of them can sleep at night. I really don't, knowing that they basically paid a quarterback who has not done anything this entire year for the Broncos, and it's turned into like a big flop for them this year. I wasn't so optimistic about them this year. I kind of had a little bit of my doubts. I did have some time like to think about like this team could be something special. They could be like the next Bucks of Tom Brady in the 2021 season, 2020-21 season, or like the Matthew Staffords of the Rams. Like you could think like all that stuff, but the problem is though is just based off of coaching and just your ability as like a player. And we've seen a lot of the flaws come within Russell Wilson during his time with the Broncos. Like we've seen a lot more now with the Broncos that, we were so blinded by when he was with Seattle. Because when he was with Seattle, he was like a superstar. He was all over the place, running all over teams. Like nobody could figure out how to beat this guy. Now anybody could beat him. Like now you've been exposed for the quarterback that you that you haven't really shown yourself to be since like your early days in Seattle, and it's basically due to having a great coach like Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll is a good coach. I'm not putting that away on anything. Like he is a good coach and everything. That's what really has made him successful is because of Pete Carroll. Nathaniel Hackett has not been able to do that. Maybe next year will be something different for the Broncos. Maybe they'll keep Russell Wilson for another year, see how he does. Or maybe they will pass on from him and find someone else. But until then, though, right now, the Broncos are absolutely washed. They are done for the season. And you can't change my mind about it. You're 3-8 right now. You just lost a primetime game already on Sunday night to the Chiefs. Like, now the scheduling is changing for that, which I kind of knew that was going to happen eventually. Like, there's a lot of things that are not going right for you as a Broncos player this year, and you need to get back to the drawing board next year to figure out like Who's at fault here, and what are you guys going to do to make it better for next year? And I would not be surprised if the Broncos do not win a game for the rest of the year. I really would not be shocked if they did not win a game for the rest of the year. Would not be surprised at all. All right, let's move on because I'm already getting aggravated talking about the Broncos. All right, I don't want to talk about this one too long, but I guess I got to talk about it a little bit. Mike White. Okay, Mike White last year played against the Bengals and had a good game against them when he played with the Jets. Okay, then the next game after they played the Bills and they had a pretty bad game with him. I think he threw like 4 interceptions in that game. Okay, so you faced the team that was an eventual Super Bowl runner-up. And that's impressive. That's an impressive win. Then you lose to the Bills and you give up. Have so many turnovers in that game. Up and down kind of bit. So am I surprised? I know a lot of people want to talk up Mike White as like, this new starting quarterback. And I understand they want to really hype him up a little bit. But God almighty, guys, he only played one game. Okay? Yeah, it was a nice game for him. Good for him for beating the Chicago Bears. That's amazing. Go ahead. Good. You can celebrate. You can, do whatever you want. You can brag about him, bragging rights there, whatever, okay? But the Bears defense has gotten worse throughout the year. They have gotten absolutely, positively worse throughout the entire year. And they're just regressing downward more. For someone like Mike White to go in there and sling the ball to Garrett Wilson, and what have you, it's not that impressive against a rebuilding Chicago Bears team. I'm just saying that, and I'm throwing that idea out there right now. That's just not that impressive, guys. Okay? Now, do I think someone should start the rest of the year over Zach Wilson for better playoff implications? Yeah, I agree with that. I think you find a quarterback like a Mike White or Joe Flacco to start for the rest of the year. I agree with that because I think Zach Wilson is not the answer right now. He still has a long ways to go to be the quarterback that he was drafted for. So I do agree with that 100%. But do I want Mike White to start for the rest of the season? Let's take a look at the rest of the schedule here. I'll just read them out loud. I don't even feel like really sharing the screen at this point in time right now. But, the rest of the games that they do play throughout the rest of the year. Okay, the Vikings. Do you want Mike White to play against the Vikings, a very top scoring offense for them, for as in the Vikings? Okay, then you play the Bills in Buffalo. That's a really tough game. The Lions. You play at the Lions. That could be a pretty good game for him. That could be a game I would let him play in. What about against the Jaguars? That could be a game I probably would let him play in that game on a Thursday night. I believe that's a Thursday. Yeah, that's a Thursday night game. Seattle in Seattle, that's a tough environment. We'll see. Maybe, maybe not. And then you go to play Miami, the last game of the season. So you're already coming down to like playoff implications. So you're already winding down to the end of the season where like your quarterback situation starts now to really start panicking about who's going to be the starting quarterback for this team. Who's going to be the one that really carries this team to the playoffs? Joe Flacco or Mike White? I think for Mike White, there are some games I think you can let him play in, but I also want to see where Joe Flacco stands too. Like, I get you're trying to put your team in the best position to win so you can make the playoffs. I absolutely positively get that for sure. I would want, if I was a coach, I would be the same way too. But with Joe Flacco's experience and the kind of chemistry that he was able to build with this team before Zach Wilson came back, it was, you can't beat with the relationship that he did have. You can't beat that. Okay, you can't beat that whatsoever. But you're also trying to figure out, like, with this top-notch defense you have, which is an easy top 5 defense in the league, you got to pick between Mike White and Joe Flacco. I personally go with the veteran. I always like to go with the veterans before I go against a younger player, depending on the situation, obviously. And I think with Mike White, I don't know if he's ready for like that, but like that kind of competition. Like I said before, he played the Bengals last year as one of his first NFL career starts and played an outstanding game against them that made the offense look totally alive, which they didn't really look all that alive last year under Zach Wilson. And then the next game when they played the Bills, they got absolutely dismantled and he turned the ball over. So I could see there's some inconsistencies. I think there's still some tough teams that he might have some problems with. I think the Bills could still be a very big problem for this Jets team. Maybe if the Dolphins kind of start playing, good defense, maybe they could be too. Maybe the Jags could be a tough game for them, or maybe the Vikings defense decides to play today and could beat them and force a lot of turnovers from Mike White. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things to really look at. There's a lot of things to analyze. You've got to really look at it this way. You've got to analyze film between what Joe Flacco can do in the first 3 games of the season that he played versus what Mike White has played so far with the Jets, including this game, and see like you got to come up with some quarterback competition there to help your team succeed and see who's going to help you lead into, take you to the promised land and take you to the playoffs. This team's not winning a Super Bowl. I'll say that right now. They're not winning a Super Bowl, but they are a playoff team. They're a team that they could make the playoffs in, but they also could be like a team that could be one and done. Or they could be a wild card team, an absolute wild card team, and they upset somebody and they win. You just never know with the Jets. But I think your offense does explode a lot more when you have either Joe Flacco or Mike White in versus Zach Wilson. That's all I got to say on that. All right, man. I talked about them a little bit. The Washington Commanders. Yeah, they are a team. That will be a team that nobody wants to face in the playoffs. I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree. Right now, they're at the number 7 seed. If if the season were to end today, the Commanders would play against the Vikings yet again. And possibly this time could be a time where the Commanders could beat the Vikings in Minnesota. Just throwing that out there, they could be a team that could beat the Vikings. They are a team that could beat the Eagles. They are most definitely a team that could beat Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They are also a team that could also beat the Dallas Cowboys. They are a team that could beat the New York Giants. Like the teams that they can beat in the NFC, like they could compete with almost anybody in the NFC. We've seen them play and beat the Eagles. We saw them play a really close game against the Vikings. We haven't seen them play the Bucs yet, but we know within the last couple of years, Taylor Heineke has played against Tom Brady really tough. The Cowboys, they lost to them early in the year, but I think this time could be a different story, and they probably could find a way to beat the Cowboys. I think if you're looking at the NFC, I think their toughest matchup, the toughest game that they would play, would be the San Francisco 49ers. They are the toughest team right now for the Commanders that would have a difficulty trying to beat them. And maybe the Cowboys would be a tough one too, but yeah, they are a team that are tough. They are a team that I would not want to face right now. And I think Marcus Mariota, when he played against the Commanders this weekend, I think he also felt the same way too. That after playing the Commanders, like, this is a scary team to play. They are red hot. Their defense is playing absolutely insane. Offense starting to click a little bit, especially in the run game, which was supposed to be a lot stronger this year than anticipated, but they're playing strong in the run game. Pass rush, very good. Run defense, very good. There's a lot of things about the Commanders that make them a very, very, very big dark horse in the NFC side of things, especially in the NFC East. Not saying they're going to win the division, but let's say if all 4 teams make the playoffs in the NFC East, they could beat the Eagles. If the Eagles end up winning that division, they could beat the Cowboys. if they end up winning that division, or they could also beat the Giants as well, who also is still in competition to win the NFC East, which I don't think is going to happen at this point in the season, just given with the Giants' record and given with what they have left. But regardless, take a look at this Giants team, take a look at the Commanders team. You know, like the Commanders are just the hardest team that nobody wants to face right now. They're just a scary looking team, and they can just about beat anybody in the NFC. I really, really, truly believe that they're a team that could beat just about anybody. Why? Because of Ron Rivera and his very good coaching skills. That, by the way, a lot of people have not given Ron Rivera the credit that he deserves this year. And then you got to give credit to Taylor Heineke. Carson Wentz was not able to provide the energy. He was not able to provide the swagger to the team. Like there was a lot of things that Carson Wentz was not able to do. You know what this kind of reminds me of? This Commanders team reminds me of. They remind me of the Tennessee Titans of the 2019 season. Remember early in the season, in that particular season, Marcus Mariota was the starter. They were insisting that Mariota would be the starter for the entire 2019 season. So, okay, that's fine. So, while his stats did not seem bad, but his play at quarterback was not living up to the Mike Vrabel side of things and the offense that he was asking him to do. The offense was asking him to be pretty much like a pocket passer quarterback, which is something that Mariota is not very good at. He's not a pocket passer. He is someone that is going to make you big plays in outside of the pocket. He's the quarterback that's going to make um, wildcat formations like we've seen with when he played with the Raiders the last 2 years. That's the kind of player that Marcus Mariota is. He is not a pocket passer quarterback, and he's never been good in the pocket, and he never will be good in the pocket. So when he was not able to perform the role that he was in, that's when Ryan Tannehill took over. Ryan Tannehill, before then, keep in mind, was the Miami Dolphins quarterback for a lot of years before Adam Gase and that whole crew decided to mess up with his career and injuries. They didn't think he would be really worth much of anything anymore. Therefore, they traded him to the Titans. So he started the season as a backup. By the time Mariota was benched, and it was a very good reason, and I love Marcus Mariota for a lot of reasons. I think he's a tremendous person. I think he has had good moments in football, but I understand the reasoning why you have to bench him again with the Titans, because he's not living to the offense that you have, and he doesn't fit into that scheme. So I totally get it. Ryan Tannehill took over that offense, and boy, did they explode. They made it to the AFC Championship game where they lost to the Chiefs. And the Chiefs ended up being Super Bowl champs. That is like the Titans team that reminds me in the Commanders. Carson Wentz starts the season out 2-4, and Taylor Heineke turns it around. He's 6-1 as a starter. You know, he may not necessarily be a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, but the guy knows how to win games. And Carson Wentz, while he's had his fair share, was wildly inconsistent. You never know the conditions that he was in. You never know what injury-prone thing that was going to happen to him. You never know what kind of injury he was going to suffer this week. You never know what he was going to do under pressure. You never knew what he was going to do with the ball. Like he was either going to run with it, or he would always hold the ball for way too long, and whatever situation was, the guy was just wildly inconsistent. And after his injury, gave Taylor Heineke the edge to, okay, at least see how you do as a starter now. And he's turned this team around. And it's not all just because of him. It's all basically because of coaching too. Ron Rivera does not get the coaching credit that he deserves. I think he needs to be credited as probably the comeback coach of the year. Like I'm telling you, he really helped turn this team around within his years of being there. He would always start out very slow and very sluggish to turning the team around to being better than what anybody would have anticipated them to be this year. Just because of like luck, really. It's basically because of luck and the players that you do have, and you just try to scrap up with the best players that you do have. Like this Commanders team does have all the talent that they do need. They have Terry McLaurin, a very underrated wide receiver, Curtis Samuel, up and down, this year, but he's had some really good big games. Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, the offensive line that's not been that bad this year, besides maybe a couple of games. Like there's a lot of talent on this Commanders team. They are good. They are a good team. Guys, I projected them to be 7-10 this year. But I told you their best record probably would have been 10-7 if everything panned out right. I believe I'd said 10-7 would be their best record. Maybe a little bit above that. I don't really remember. But at least they would have probably won 10 wins would be like the maximum wins that they would have gotten this year. And I think they could possibly get to 10 wins this year. Just based off of how they've been playing lately. They could get to 10 wins. And they could make the playoffs. Like, it's a dark horse team. This team's a dark horse team. There are a lot of things I like about this team. There's a lot of things I liked about them before the season. Defensively, specifically. Offensively, I liked the run game. The run game was underrated. So, they are a team. They are going to go to the playoffs. Very likely. I think they have a good shot of doing so. And if they do, they're a huge dark horse that could just about beat anybody. Period. Bottom line. We'll talk about the Falcons very briefly, though. Marcus Mariota, if he did not throw that interception right at the goal line there on 2nd and goal, the Falcons probably could have won this game. I'm just saying that right now. Or if Marcus Mariota would have probably ran that ball in or probably scrambled around to find somebody that was open, like they probably could have won that game. Now, I don't necessarily blame the pass on Mariota. I think it was the right call. I think it was the kind of play that you need to make on something like that, especially if you're not able to run it in with no. They had like 3 timeouts left, so I think clock management was a bit of a, kind of really was favored on their side. But I think really at this point, like, there are other ways. Like you do have 3 timeouts. You're only 2nd and goal. You don't need to force the ball into the end zone. Like you don't need to throw it into the end zone just yet. We have some good running backs. We should utilize them. Maybe we'll get into the end zone with some of these running backs. Like they had Cordell Patterson that, could really do well. And Tyler Algier, can I just say something about Tyler Algier? Is a good running back. He's a good running back, and he's not just good for fantasy purposes, but he's been a good running back this year. If you could have ran that ball in, you probably would have scored and won. Maybe your pass rush probably wouldn't have been able to stop Heineke. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to. But I would have rather you try to run the ball into the end zone rather than to force the ball into, force a pass play there. Because I feel like if you don't convert on 2nd down, you still have like 3 of your other timeouts. And you could, you don't have to rush. You're already there in Washington Commanders territory. You're deep in their territory, and you're, basically inside the goal, inside the 5. You don't really need to throw the ball, but it wasn't a bad choice by any means on coaching call to do that. You just didn't need to do it, though. That's the thing that I'm trying to say here. I'm not against it, but it's something that you don't really need to do. Now, Arthur Smith, I listened to his press conference. This guy needs to hold accountability for his actions. He needs to hold accountable for the loss that the Falcons faced today. Because I feel like with him, not just Mariota, because I don't think Mariota has played that bad in this game, or at least not that bad this year, besides maybe like a couple of games. But Arthur Smith has to hold accountability to his actions. He has to hold accountability to his team that he prepares each and every week. And he's got to be held accountable for everything else that he does. Just saying. I'm just saying. Because listening to his press conference after the game makes him really sound very arrogant and very self-absorbed when he's so cocky about his own play calls that he made in this game. And you got to be a man, and you got to take accountability to why your team lost and what you're going to do better for the next time. What's something that you could have done differently? I understand you're mad you lost the game and you shouldn't have lost that game. I get that for sure. But you got to hold accountability to yourself. That's all I got to say on that. All right, real quick. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this particular game, but yeah, I mean, I was happy for Jacoby Brissett. I didn't pick the Browns to win, if I'm being honest with you. I really didn't pick them to win the straight up. I thought the Bucs would have. But I told you this would have been a trap game for the Bucs, and it could have been a game that, with Jacoby Brissett, he played under Tom Brady for, about a year or so before he went to Indy. And, he knows some familiarity with Tom Brady and his plays. Like, probably knows some ways to be able to beat him. And it was a bittersweet ending for him, if I'm being honest. Maybe not everybody thought Brissett would have won the way that he did against Tom Brady and the Bucs. But at the same time, it was a nice win for him. Does it spark up the Browns? Does this make the Browns an even better team now with, that ending for them? Like, does it make the Browns a better team? Does it make them a playoff team now? With Deshaun Watson coming back this week, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow, maybe this might have been the win that could probably start to push the Browns down the field now and probably start pushing towards playoff implications. Just maybe. I mean, they should have won some more games along the ride, but this game might just have been it. This game might have been it to really set the Browns up for success for the rest of the season. Maybe this could have been a game that sets up the playoff picture for the Browns. Maybe this is the team that will start winning games, down the stretch here. I don't know, but Jacoby Brissett, I just want to say, I doubt you're watching it, but thank you. Thank you all that you've done for the Browns this year. It's not your fault that you lost all these games. Not all your fault. Okay? You got to blame it on your defensive coordinator, who's probably the worst in the NFL right now. The worst defensive coordinator ever. You got to blame him. And yeah, that's pretty much all you got to blame it on. It's really him. It's really not been Jacoby Brissett. He has not been the problem for the Browns at all this year. I really don't think he was the problem at all for this Browns team. And I don't think the offense was really, I don't think it was really the offense that really let them down. It was the defense. It was poor coaching that let this team down. Poor coaching. So, thank you, Jacoby Brissett. Thank you. And thank you for beating Tom Brady, too. I think that was a nice win for you. Bittersweet ending for you to beat Tom Brady, your old teammate. We'll talk about the Bucs next. Okay? The Bucs, yes, I believe they can still make the playoffs. I am going to still ride on that train for the Bucs train, to make it to the playoffs. But I do not have any more high hopes for this team to make it anywhere further than the wild card. I'm sorry, Bucs fans. I'm sorry, Tom Brady fans. I just don't see it anymore. I don't know what this team is right now. They're good one week. They're awesome defensively one week. They're great offensively one week. But then they fall apart. Like, I don't understand what this team is right now. I really don't understand what they are right now. And none of these players are really anything special right now. Outside of, Tom Brady. And Tom Brady really hasn't played well. The stats look impressive. But when you watch him play the game and you watch, the highlights of the game, you know he doesn't play up to where he used to. They're very average stat lines. They look impressive. 14 for 2 interceptions. 14 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. With a quarterback rating score of 92. Time to retire. I really think it's time for Tom Brady to retire. Because Tom Brady, he may not be the only person letting this team down. He may not be the only person that's putting the team away from where they should be. But at the same time, man, the guy's 45. He's won 7 Super Bowls. I love Tom Brady to death. I really do. If I could watch him play for the rest of my life, I would. I would put a lot of money on him right now if I really wanted to, that for him to be so superior by the age of 50. Like, that's how good of a quarterback he is. That's how great of an NFL player he really is. And that's how what's the word I'm looking for? That's how motivated and encouraged that he is in the NFL. There's no other NFL player that you will ever see ever again in this league like a Tom Brady, who is so passionate about the game of football, who is so involved in his teammates' lives, who's so involved in like the coaching aspect of things, who's so involved in making great plays, who's calling the plays at this point in his career. Like, the guy has had so much over the years. It's time for him to just pack it up. It's time to retire. You've had a great football career. You've had a great quarterback career. 7 Super Bowls. Could have had 10, but thanks Eli Manning. And I guess thanks Nick Foles too. But there's nothing else that he has to prove anymore. I don't believe there's really any other quarterback or any other NFL player for that matter that you will ever see again that has the courage, that has the love of the game of football that Tom Brady has. Now, do I think Tom Brady should leave football entirely? Well, he did sign that deal with Fox to be an analyst. We'll see if that comes through. We'll see if he works for Fox next season. But I don't believe he should leave the game of football totally. Should retire from playing for sure. But I think he should not leave the NFL. I don't believe he should leave football in general. I think he should be a coach. I think he should be an analyst. Whatever he wants to do now. He could do whatever he wants. He should not leave football. Because let me tell you, the NFL would be completely lost without Tom Brady. That's why he should not leave football. Hang up the cleats, but not leave football. All right. Hold on. Let me see. A couple more games here, I think. Yeah, a couple more games. I might not talk about all of them for as long. I apologize for this being almost 2 hours long, but we're getting there. All right, I might talk. Yeah, I'll talk about this game now. Everybody wants to talk about the Raiders and the Seahawks game, which I'll talk about in a bit. But can we please talk about the Jags and the Ravens game? Like, can we praise the Jags for beating the Ravens? Like, yeah, the Ravens are not the best team in the NFL. They may not be like the number one team. But for you to go in your home stadium at Duval County and be a really good, a potential playoff team of the Baltimore Ravens, who's had a lot of success over the years against the Jags, who's had a lot of success against a lot of teams. Like, can we, really credit Trevor Lawrence? Can we credit Jacksonville for beating a good team and John Harbaugh? We need to. I told you this was going to be a trap game for them. I told you that I was going with the upset with Jacksonville. And I am so glad I did, because you know why? Because with all the mistakes that the Jags made, and they made a ton of mistakes in this game, no question about it. But the Ravens gave up on the biggest plays of this game. They were up 19-10 or something like that, I think, at one point. They were up by 9 at least. And then the deficit was cut down to 7 at some point. Like, the Ravens offensively right now is showing you exactly what I was talking about in the beginning of the year. And what I mean by that is that their offense outside of Lamar Jackson is terrible. Okay? Without Mark Andrews, he played in this game, but you take Mark Andrews out and you cover him, you don't allow him to make big reception plays, you're going to win the game. You contain Lamar Jackson in the pocket, you force him to throw the ball down the field, you're going to win the game. Because who does Lamar Jackson have to throw the ball to? Okay, Deshaun Jackson. Could be like a deep threat. But he's not in the game all the time. Okay? Devin Duvernay? Or Rashad Bateman, who hasn't played in the game in like 1,000 years. Like, who do you turn the ball to now? Who do you pass the ball to? It's all run first. This is a run first team. And quite truthfully, Kenyon Drake had one big game, but the running backs have not really been able to do anything more than what Lamar does in the rushing game. Like, I'm just throwing that out there right now that the reason for this team's success offensively, and their offense was exposed by Jacksonville. Exposed. They're exactly what I told you about. This offense struggles. Lamar can make good plays, no question about it. He is a game changer. He is a dynamic player, no question about it. But the Ravens like it to be just him being the whole team. And then you signed Deshaun Jackson. Okay. He's a great deep threat down the field. That's perfectly fine. If you decide to throw the ball down the field often, if you have Deshaun Jackson playing in the game 24/7 all the time, every single Sunday, Monday, Thursday nights, whatever, like that's all great and dandy. But he's not your long-term answer, guys. You need to get a better receiving core for this man. You've got to get a better run game for this man, too. Like his run game, his running backs, they get hurt all the time. Okay? They get hurt all the time. Your defensive coordinator, Greg Roman, it stinks. It's terrible. It's time to move on from him. Totally. It's totally time for him to move on. No question about it. Now, in terms of Jacksonville, they had a lot of mistakes in this game. No question about it. The Ravens should have capitalized on them. Absolutely, they should have capitalized on those mistakes that they made. And they're a very young, immature team. They're like the Jets. Only the Jets right now just have a better sense of who they are and what their identity is. And that's relating towards their defense. Jacksonville hasn't found that identity yet. I think they will find it by the end of the year. That will roll into next year. Like, this is not a bad Jacksonville Jaguars team. They are not bad at all. Trevor Lawrence, yeah, up and down a lot this year, but he's not that bad of a quarterback, okay? Not that bad of a quarterback. He's not living up exactly to your number one overall pick in the 2021 draft. Maybe not exactly like that. But when you build the talent around him and you have a coach that believes in you and you have a coach that's not dysfunctional, you're going to win games. You're going to win games. And yeah, I mean, I will blame Doug Peterson for some things that he has done this year. That's probably set this team back a little bit. Not entirely is his fault, though. He's still a very good coach. And when the guy wants to go for it on fourth down, he goes for it on fourth down. If the guy wants to go for two, he feels confident. I didn't agree with the 2-point conversion at first. I think they should have played it in overtime. In my head, thinking about it at first, I would have rather you play it in overtime and see what you could do then, because your offense was moving on that last drive, your last offensive drive. But for them to go for the 2-point conversion ended up working out in the long run for them. And it was nice to see. Like, it was nice to see them to convert that too. But that was a very gutsy 2-point conversion. Very gutsy 2-point conversion. But, and Justin Tucker, let's talk about that kick too. Lamar Jackson, I think it was like 12 seconds left. Marched the team right down to where Justin Tucker's field goal target is. Okay? So they call a timeout there. And they go for the field goal. Okay, that's great. I totally agree with that. When you have like 2 seconds left in the game, yeah, you got to kick the ball wherever it is. And if you have someone like Justin Tucker, you can really, really, really hope, and you know it's very possible he could make it. He broke the NFL record last year of a 66-yard field goal against the Lions. Like, that's great. So they kicked it, and so close. They missed it by just this much. And the Jaguars win. And I like I said, going for it on that 2-point conversion. At the end of the day, I didn't love the call at first. I think it was very gutsy. But at the end of the day, that's a good call by Doug Peterson. That's a good call by, the offensive coordinator. And that's a good play that Trevor Lawrence had at the back of his pocket. And Zay Jones, what a game he had. Zay Jones was all over it. He had a really good game. And I think this was like a big mismatch for the Ravens a little bit, but outside of like Marcus Peters, who's like they're probably one of their best secondary players, best corners in the game. But Zay Jones was like all over the field. That really worked out in Jacksonville's favor. And I really liked seeing that. I really, really liked seeing that. That was really cool to see of how much affection he really was in this game, how much he was really a factor in this game. And it's good for him that he was there. It's good for him to be involved in that kind of game easily. No question about it. No question about it. But this was a good win for the Jags, though, for sure. This would be a game that if I was a Jags coach or if I was a franchise for beating the Ravens in this kind of season, or if I'm Trevor Lawrence and I'm in my sophomore year of playing football, this is a win I would brag about for a little bit because, beating the Ravens is never easy. But it was a nice win for him, though. We got to talk more about that game. All right, Josh Jacobs, man. We got a couple more games to talk about, by the way. The unsung hero for the Raiders this week goes to Josh Jacobs. What an amazing game Josh Jacobs had in this game. This is why the Raiders need to run the ball more with Josh Jacobs. When they run the ball, they're successful. Do they need to be a one-dimensional team with just having him run all the time like the next Titans or the next Colts? No, they don't necessarily need to. But when you run the ball successfully, you take Josh Jacobs in and you allow him to have big games like this, what he had against the Seahawks. You can win games. No question about it. You can win games. And that's exactly what they did. Again, I believe that this was also a kind of a lucky win for the Raiders. Another lucky win like it was last week against the Broncos. This was a lucky win for them. And it was a nice win for them. I'm happy that the Raiders did win. I hope they do make that final push to get into the playoffs. I think it's very possible that they could, despite the defense. That's awful, by the way. Defense is probably the worst in the league right now. Okay? But the Seahawks defense is also bad, too. And they were just worse in this game. That's why they allowed Josh Jacobs to run all over them the way that they did. But this was a really good game to talk about, too. Because this actually put, like, the Raiders and Josh McDaniels, is this, like, Josh McDaniels, ability? Is this, like, his real deal for him to really play really good games here? Like, is this, like, the game where, like, he has to be good coach, especially in a tough environment like Seattle? Like, this is a really tough environment to play in Seattle. It really is. Like, ask anybody that has had experience playing in Seattle. It's loud, it's rowdy, it's crazy over there. No question about it. But McDaniels proved everybody wrong, and he shut everybody up. And now since then, everybody wants to now praise Josh McDaniels. A couple of weeks ago, they were all for firing him. Everybody was all ready to say, you're fired, you're done, you should never be a coach here ever again. You take a look at when he was a head coach of the Denver Broncos, and now all of a sudden you want to make him sound like the hero. Guys, Josh McDaniels was always a good coach. Always a good coach. He was one of the best offensive coordinators in New England. Okay? One of the best offensive coordinators in New England. So why does it not surprise me that he's having this kind of success here with the Raiders? He has not had a good start. Yes, that is true. That's okay. As long as you can get your teams prepared, if you have like teams that you can prepare, if you can push these kind of wins, you can have success. And Josh McDaniels is a good coach. He has had a lot of respect for the Raiders all this year. I think they had some questions in the middle of the season. I agree with that. I think they had their questions. I think Derek Carr, Devontae Adams showed like he was not happy there. I think they're starting to show some life. I think they're starting to now give credit to Josh McDaniels because of the key thing. They are patient. They are being patient with Josh McDaniels and what he has to offer as an offensive mind. And that's what the Raiders are. They're an offensive team, not a defensive team. They are offensive first team. And now they're starting to figure out what their identity is going to be. And quite truthfully, if I was the Raiders, if I was Josh McDaniels, I would run the ball the rest of the year for a lot. Because I know if I can get some really big yardage with Josh Jacobs, if I know I can get some big plays from Josh Jacobs, and we can limit Derek Carr from making mistakes, and he made mistakes in this game through 2 picks. But when you keep him contained, when you have Devontae Adams in that category of like having success, and you have Josh Jacobs running the ball, you're going to be a very successful team. Now, think about it in a way of they had Hunter Renfrow, who hasn't been very good this year, or if you had someone like Darren Waller, you are putting yourself in a potential, already winning like really good games already. Like if you had won some of those early season games, like I told you all about in the beginning of the year, like some of those games they had to start winning them like now. Like if they would have won against Arizona where they were up like 20-0 at halftime, if they would have won that game, if they would have won the game against the Chiefs, and they would have won against the Jacksonville Jags, this team could already still be like on the outside just looking in to the playoff contention. Like if they would have won those 3 particular games, which very easily they could have won those 3 games, no question about it. If they would have won those 3 games, they would have been successful. They would already be like pushing for a playoff run here. Now they got to play from behind, which is a shame to see. It is a shame to see them play from behind now, but they're one of the teams I feel like could. Next week they play the Chargers. I'll talk about them in a second. I think they match up well with the Chargers, especially if they're playing in Las Vegas, which they are. That could be a really tough game for the Chargers to win, just based off of what the Raiders have and based off of the game that they are playing. Now let's talk about the Seahawks a little bit. The Seahawks defense is terrible. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about them, but they are terrible. Geno Smith has not been the problem. In fact, he's been the story for the NFL this year. No one expected Geno Smith to have the season that he has. And no one expected him to have 6 wins already. But their defense needs to get themselves going. And they just weren't able to get that going against the Raiders. All right, so both quarterbacks for this game, the Chargers-Cardinals game, I watched this game actually. This was actually, surprisingly, was airing over here in New Jersey, which I was a little surprised about. I wasn't expecting this game to be played here. But I have to say, this was probably one of the best games I think Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray have played all year. I think they both really came in clutch. I have both of these quarterbacks in the same fantasy football league that I have. So I was in that desperation mode of like, who am I going to start? Who can I trust? Can I trust Kyler Murray or can I trust Justin Herbert? I mean, I started Kyler Murray, which I'm not ashamed of doing. I'm not ashamed of starting him. But Justin Herbert probably got like 2 more points. Probably would have made some points in the points differential, but I ended up winning anyway, so it didn't really matter too much. But regardless, though, I mean, yeah, this game was good. Like I really liked watching this game. I think this was the best Chargers performance I've seen. This was kind of like the Chargers that we were anticipating to see this year, this entire season, which hasn't really happened as well, that much this season. But it was a good game for the Chargers, though. I think it was more of like a mismatch for the both of these teams. If I'm being honest, I think they were kind of a mismatch a little bit. mainly because I think they were both just kind of slinging the ball down the field a little bit. And this game, similarly to the Ravens and Jags game, I think was very gutsy for Brandon Staley and the Chargers, who hasn't not been very good offensively within the last several weeks, to go for two. I thought it was a very gutsy call. I didn't love the call for this team, but I understand why they were coming from. It was a mismatched game. Your season's on the line. Still, you got to go for it. So I understand all of that for sure. I understand all that. Which they did get it, and it was pretty impressive with the way they got it. I mean, they got the touchdown to Austin Eckler. It was a touchdown pass, I believe, from Justin Herbert, and then they got a 2-point conversion pass to Gerald Everett. So that's all fine and dandy and everything. But it still was a mixed match game because they were both just kind of slinging the ball down the field over and over and over again. And I feel like with the way this game went, I feel like they could have put up a lot more points than what they did put up, respectively. It was 25-24. I feel like it could have been a lot more. But, it happens. But both quarterbacks played well in this game. Been kind of a disappointing year for both teams, in my opinion. More so the Chargers. I didn't think the Cardinals would be anything special this year, but mostly with Justin Herbert. I mean, I feel bad for Justin Herbert and the talent that he has. The guy's one of the best quarterbacks. He could be easily a top 5 quarterback right now. That's how good Justin Herbert really is. And his stat line has been, it may seem average, but it's been pretty solid, I believe. His stats, statistics and everything like that. I think his stats has been pretty impressive, solid for the most part of the season. But a lot of people want to blame Herbert for losing a lot of these games this year, when really it comes down to coaching, and when it comes down to depth too. Because when you don't have Keenan Allen, okay, you don't have Keenan Allen, you don't have Mike Williams. Those are your two best wide receivers in the game. Then you have Josh Palmer, who, was a good wide receiver 3 and has had some big moments this year. But he's not your true number 1 receiver that you want to throw the ball down the field. If this team had what the Bengals do have, they're both very similar to one another. If Justin Herbert had a Jamar Chase, if he had a T. Higgins and a Tyler Boyd, this team would be unstoppable. But Keenan Allen, gets hurt a lot of times. Mike Williams, who I thought was going to be the number 1 receiver, ended up getting hurt as well. And I don't know what his status is going to be next week, and hopefully he does end up playing based off of fantasy football purposes. But when you don't really have your best top guns in the team in the game, that affects you. That affects your playing. That affects the offense as a whole. And then really all you really have is Austin Eckler with running the ball. Those are the 2 players that have done really the most work in Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler. As I said, Joshua Palmer has been very good this year. I feel like he has stepped up to the plate big time, and probably could upgrade himself from wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2 for next year. That's how impressive he's been this year. And then the defense. Look at the defense that the Chargers do have on paper. Just tell me this is not a bad defense on paper. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, J.C. Jackson, Kyle Van Noy. Those are all your best defensive players, and you still can't play good defense. You got to blame the coaching on that, because you cannot have all that great talent on that defense and play so susceptible to everything that you do on defense, especially the run. Can't stop the run for anything. But the Cardinals are not that much better than the Chargers. They're not much better off, or they're probably worse off, in my opinion, with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, I'm sorry, great quarterback and everything. He could be something special, but the reason why he's not going to be anything special in this league is just the way his attitude is. The guy just has a major attitude problem. Cliff Kingsbury, overrated coach for sure. And when he doesn't have his top receivers in with DeAndre Hopkins, and he doesn't have Marquise Brown, he just does not play. Does not play the game of football. Just speaking the God honest truth. But since he had both of those players in, he still was, still lost but it makes a difference for Murray. Like if he has like his two best receivers in the game, that's going to be very good for him, and he'll start playing good. But yeah, the Cardinals just have not been anywhere. I don't know if Kyler Murray is really the answer for them. I don't know if Kyler Murray is going to be like the franchise quarterback or continue with this team, just based off like how his attitude is. Like the guy just acts like a total fool when he's throwing other players under the bus. When you listen to like to his press conferences and you watch like highlights, like later on in the game, and like you see him like yelling and screaming at like the coaches and the players and everything. Like what kind of leader does that show that to the team? Like you're supposed to be the face of the franchise and you're going around and you're doing stuff like that. Like come on, you can't be doing that. All right, 2 more games left. And next, Aaron Rodgers went down for the Green Bay Packers, so it's turning over to Jordan Love, not the number 1 pick, but the first round pick of the 2020 draft, Jordan Love from Utah State. I was actually very happy when the Packers did this draft in 2020. They had the worst draft in the whole league. There was no question about it. But I really liked this pick of Jordan Love, and I'll explain why. Just like with Aaron Rodgers, when he played under Brett Favre, he learned a couple of years from Brett Favre. The two didn't quite get along as much from what media says. The two kind of argued quite a bit. They were a bit of a rivalry. But Brett Favre was the best at what he did. Okay? Brett Favre retires. Or no, he moves on to another team. I think he went on to the Vikings after that, or the Jets, one of the two. And then after that, you have Aaron Rodgers, and he took over the helm. And it's been there for his entire career. I feel like now, this is like a similar. This kind of reminds me of that similar situation there with Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers is the new Brett Favre. And Jordan Love is the new Aaron Rodgers. Meaning that Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 seasons. Has only had 1 NFL start in that game. He could potentially have a second one next week, depending on what Rodgers is going to do for the rest of the year and his injury. And I gotta tell you though, as well as where Aaron Rodgers has played his entire career, and the Eagles' defense not being so great against the Packers on Sunday night, but I'll tell you something about Jordan Love. Players better start watching out for him. He could be the new Aaron Rodgers of the new face of the modern football era. I really do think so. And everyone thought like Jordan Love was going to be like the waste of the pick from that 2020 draft. I think they're going to get the most of him now. I think with Aaron Rodgers and his injury now, and with the team kind of dwindling down and going like on a downward spiral, if I was Matt LaFleur, I would start Jordan Love for the rest of the season. Because I want to see more of Jordan Love and what he can do. And what he can do, what we saw from last week when he played against the Eagles and like for, a good majority of the second half. I mean, yeah, good drive for him and everything. Got that big touchdown to Christian Watson. And that should have been the number 1 receiver for Rodgers the entire year, because I think Christian Watson is the number 1 receiver for this team. Don't know why you think it's Allen Lazard. Don't know why you think it's Randall Cobb. But it is Christian Watson. He's your number 1 receiver. And that did not take very long for Jordan Love to figure that out. It took him maybe like 2-3 plays, possibly. Don't remember at the top of my head. But it did not take him very long to figure that out. So I think if I was Matt LaFleur, I start Jordan Love the rest of the year. And then with the value of Aaron Rodgers, whether if he decides to retire or if he decides to go into free agency or if he gets traded to another team, you can still get some value out of him. And not for nothing, too, if you do decide to let him go into free agency, you decide to trade him away and get all that availability from the cap space for the franchise, the organization, You could save up for like at least another receiver for Jordan Love. And if you put another receiver for him and you get rid of Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator, you get rid of him, you have a darn good team right there. If you fix up just those little things, you could potentially have a pretty good team for next year. But that's my thought on it. That's my thought on Jordan Love. I think he needs to start the rest of the year. We need to see where he's at. We need to see if he's like the franchise guy for this franchise of Green Bay that's been very dysfunctional for many, many years. And last but certainly not least, the Colts and Steelers game. Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this game, but yeah, the Colts lost this game based off of clock management. I talk about the last 2 minutes because the Colts did absolutely nothing the entire first half. Matt Ryan looked like Matt Ryan like all season long. The Steelers defense was good, but I gotta say, and I will mention the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, the next quarterback wide receiver duo right there. That's going to be something really special to see for the future. But for the Colts defense to be as good as they are and to give up 24 points to the Steelers, like, come on. You can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. It should have been at least a 17-10, 17-16 kind of a game. Even a 20-17 game. Not 24, though. I think that's a lot for the Steelers. But yeah, the Colts really shot themselves in the foot, and play calling is what really got them going. And especially in the last 2 minutes of the game. They had every opportunity to win the game. They marched down the field pretty much. And then you have Matt Ryan get sacked, and then you have him make up that yardage to go all the way down the run up and, get stopped there, but like 3 inches or 3 yards away from the first down marker. Like, that's all fine and dandy and everything, but you took so much time. Took so much time away. I don't know if that was a Jeff Saturday thing or if it was a Matt Ryan thing and he felt like he could get this hurry-up offense going. Dude, your offense was terrible the entire game. What makes you think they were going to hurry up and get to the line of scrimmage and make a good play then? You wasted like 40 seconds off the clock. You shouldn't have been able to do that. Should have had a play ready. You should have had a hurry-up offense if you were going to do that. You should have taken a timeout. You wasted so much time, so much valuable time that it took away the game from you. And then after that Matt Ryan run, you go to Jonathan Taylor. That's a good call. That's fine. But you have him run right up the middle and he gets stopped. He doesn't even gain a yard out of it. And now you're stuck at 4th and 3. And then we also got to talk about the Colts offensive line. I still want to know why they are paid as much as they are. Because they are the most overrated, highest paid offensive line in national football. It's no exaggeration. This offensive line has been bad the entire year. They can't protect Matt Ryan. They let him get sacked a bajillion times a game. They didn't do anything better with Sam Ehlinger when he played for 2 starts. This offensive line is trash. They have not been good the entire year. They need to get a serious pay cut during the offseason because I don't understand why Chris Ballard would allow this offensive line that's supposed to be the greatest in football for them to play so poorly this entire season. But clock management, dreadful offensive performance that cost the Colts a game. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth of the matter. That's exactly how it went on that. Again, it does not take away anything from the Steelers. The Steelers had a good game plan. And they won because of Mike Tomlin. In my opinion, they won because of Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin knows how to win games. He knows how to win these types of games at the end of the season. He's a big underdog. He knows how to play as the underdog. That's exactly what he did. TJ Watt, man. Minka Fitzpatrick. These defensive players, they know exactly what they need to do to succeed because they have a great coach in Mike Tomlin. So, with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my Week 12 recap reaction video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit long. I know I try not to go over 2 hours, but I get so excited and I talk so much because I'm really passionate about the game and I really want you guys to really know more about it. And I want you guys to pay more attention to it. And I want you guys to be able to have conversations with me about it. That's why I need you guys to do me a big solid and drop a like, the thumbs up button right here on this video. Hit the comment button down below. Leave a comment down below. And subscribe too, man. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're able to subscribe, please do so. Hit that notification bell. Anytime I post any new content in terms of live streams or pre-recorded videos that I make for you guys of anything NFL related, you guys will be in tune in terms of when that gets released. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, do all those things. This channel will start to grow and get better and better and better time in and time out. And with that all being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Really means a lot. Please don't forget to do all those things. We will be live tomorrow night here at 9 o'clock for the Week 13 picks and best bets as well. So with all that being said, guys, this is JP Football Fanatics saying have a beautiful night, everybody, and we'll see you all tomorrow night at 9 o'clock.